Hi all, Phil from OnDeck here. I'm out in South Elgin today, and we're looking at this deck here in the rain. We often get these calls, in November when someone says to me, I had a deck builder come out and they didn't finish my job, and I paid them all this money, and then we come back and we see everything they did wrong. So today I'm going to point out some of the things that go south when you hire a deck builder. I start here in this deck under this foundation. Looks like they got in trouble with the building inspector. The first thing is that they didn't raise the foundation above grade. It's these posters. They're just buried down here. And any structural person will know that the beam is supposed to be on top of the post, and it looks like they got in trouble with the inspector because they ended up adding this 2x here to so that this weight was bearing onto here, because when you this is called sandwiching, okay, this method. And when you put a beam on the side of a post, and they went and put a bunch of blocks in here to space it, instead of on top of the post, typically this post will get notched and this beam will go, bearing, so the weight is bearing down on top of it. They didn't do that. So now what's all this weight dependent on is these two bolts. That's what's holding it. Well, now they added this block on the side, which just makes it look terrible, right? And now the weight of the beam is now dependent on those two bolts and these 1, 2, 3, one on the bottom, 4 screws. So even though they got dinged for it by an inspector, and they did it on every single one of these posts, so this is really a proper way to make a structure. No, it's not. The hopes and dreams of these customers were when they hired the deck builder. Again, I didn't build this, right? I would never put my name on something like this. Was to have a 3-season room down here. And now they've added all of these posts. Well, why did they do that? Well, again, they probably got in trouble with the building inspector. The proper way to have done this was to use a glulam beam and make the span and make the foundations bigger to support the weight to span this out to 50 pounds per square foot. So, their dreams are kind of shattered now with getting their 3-season room down here, unless they use this small space, which has now interrupted their view by all of these. Let's count them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 additional posts. Who knows how many more? The underdeck system that they used here, oh my, it's just sheet metal panels or aluminum panels on this gutter, and it doesn't even look like I can't see a downspout anywhere. And here's the best part of it all. Oh look, that's how it's draining, that little hole. So, it's laughable, but it's also sad because, what's happening here? A very poor installation that's going to fall apart in very few years. Here we are again, this deck in South Elgin that we're looking at, and another colossal mistake. What some designers come up with is making things round. Well, oops. I made it round, now I don't know how to finish the edge of the deck board. So don't get me wrong, we've done this before. It's typically not very economical to have boards bent. If you use a product called OnDeck, which is what this lower board is here, it's PVC and it's a bit easier to bend. I'm looking at this board that they put on here. Instead of a trim board, they used a wide deck board. This product actually just started getting put into production this past year, and they probably paid an extraordinary amount of money for that. But they didn't cap the ends of the deck board, and it's because it's a scallop board now. This is all visible. On this side, they did use a trim board. They probably paid a lot less for that, but it's still just very, very shoddy. So, and that's just the beginning of some of the things that are happening over here. Now, this builder couldn't finish this deck. Why? Because they don't know how to make round railings. Again, they're factory made, factory painted railings, or they have to get sent out to some kind of company. We have one in Ohio that we use that makes them round, but I guess the person that built this didn't take that into effect. They thought they were going to build a round railing, and they got. Let's have a look at these stairs over here. And what can I say? One, we don't use trim boards to end stringers. We box our steps out. So we make a mitered cut over here. Hopefully we can put a picture of one of ours in the video, and then we cut it back so you don't end up with that, seeing the end of the deck board, right? This thing here, as stress gets on it, and I'm kicking it, you can always see it's moving out. Ice and snow and weather and kids kicking it and all sorts of other fun stuff. That's going to pop off. And there's just so many gaps in it. It's very shoddy workmanship. And over here, well, they ran out of board. Oops. Certainly looks like they put a lot of stringers in it. I haven't even had a chance to see the stringers under here yet and how they're fastened. But they fasten them right. Probably the local building inspector knew a thing or two about how to mount stringers with these brackets. But a lot of gaps. Lots of crazy stuff going on over here. These foundations are a bit more accommodating. But then again, mounted connections, right? No beam. Somebody missed that. Getting on to how these deck boards are fastened. Holy cow. The wrong screws. Folks, deck screws have a small blade on the bottom of the head that burrow themselves into the board without destroying the board. These boards, they're destroyed. This lip, I don't know if the video is really going to show you any justice. It's just awful. This is raised like 1/4 of an inch. I put my finger on it. See how high my finger is? So it's unfortunate that they did that. This should all be removed. I don't think. There's no screw on the front edge. Maybe there's one over there, but I can't see traffic on here really withstanding the test of time. More shoddy workmanship. Holy cow! Gaps in the boards. Big gaps in the boards. Burrs on the boards. They're not straight. What happened over here? We don't know. They just decided not to go all the way to the end. Now there's a shed, I can see all the way to the ground there. And this platform here, this is the stair platform, and you step up onto this deck, and you're stepping over. What happens if a kid steps in there, Holy cow. More of the same. Surface screws that are lipped up. Edges that are not straight. All the cuts are just again, I don't know how much justice the video can show, but just terrible cuts. Getting here in the center, just awful. Different size cuts, bad sawed edges. There's a reason why we don't use miter box saws to cut this stuff. This is not straight. This is the second piece is hooked to the right. Here on top, well, more of the same. Again, the edge boards not properly fastened. They didn't use Cortex screws. Just sad because for Amazon Miss TimberTech, they do make Cortex screws. They use Trex fasteners here instead of the stainless Tiger Claw fasteners that we use, or conceal lock fasteners. And it's just, I don't know what's going on over here. It's just a mess. They didn't continue the edge board. They left critical pieces to the out, which they're never going to get that piece in, right? And again, the round railing. More terrible cuts, completely uneven. Here, completely wide on this gap over here. Being critical of the installation, and again, the board it's not straight. So you'll see that this lower one's straight, but this upper one is hooked to the right. Why are we so critical of these kinds of installations? Because you're paying a lot of money for a deck board. It's an insane amount of money for a composite. You want it to look right. Here's the last thing on this deck. I could go on for maybe a couple of hours how terrible this is. These joists, they're spanned 16 inches. I can go from foot to foot here. I measured it from underneath. It is 16 inches. But it's pretty clear, and this is a really common mistake. When you do a diagonal installation like this board is only approved for a 16-inch span. Well, now look. Check out my feet. Is that 16 inches? Well, this is 16 inches. Anyone that knows anything about geometry knows that the hypotenuse of a triangle is the square root of the sum of the squares. So it's going to be longer, right? This is 22.5 inches, by the way, if it's a 45-degree angle. So now they have a deck that has a voided warranty. TimberTech's not going to stand by this. which is sad because, TimberTech's a really great company to work with. Long story short on this one, the real losers in this is the homeowner, okay? They had a dream that they wanted something beautiful, and, when you look at it from far away, there's some things that look really beautiful about it, but it's one of those things that's certainly not going to last the test of time. It's certainly not going to be warranted by the manufacturer, and it's never going to get finished properly. So looking at this deck, what kind of predicament do I get put into as a builder here? Well, they had a hard time finding someone that would even come look at this. I'll tell you why. Because nobody wants to inherit someone else's problems. I don't have a choice here unless I start to take this whole thing down and start over again, but to continue this builder's poor behavior, okay? And that's something that I really, really don't want to do. I'm really faced with an ethical decision over here. Do I try and help these people get out of this, because they're not going to get any more money from the original builder. They're not going to get any money back from them, right? What am I going to do? Am I going to help them try and get out of this with some economical way, or am I going to bail? Well, you know what? I'm going to try and help them. There's several ways we could do that, but we have to be very cautious when we get into something like this, because I don't want to do something here that's going to end up continuing this madness. And we'll have to be pretty crafty about how we're going to come up with some fixes for this deck. This is Phil with OnDeck again, coming to you from wonderful South Elgin, Illinois, and a very, very great example of a very, very poor installation.